Begin paragraph text. Welcome to the course. Make sure you take some time to review the course information module as well as the assignment instructions in the evaluations module. The instructional plan has all the important dates in one convenient location. This module will provide you with a basic understanding of some key concepts we'll use throughout this course. Learning outcomes. Begin paragraph text. This module will contribute to your understanding of the following unit learning outcomes. Begin numbered list with 2 items. Item 1 of 2, explain typologies of violence. Item 2 of 2, illustrate how typologies of violence underpin a deeper meaning of violence. Begin paragraph text. On a daily basis, violence may be witnessed firsthand, read about or watched on television or online. Media outlets find life by using graphic pictures, grotesque videos, or personal reflections to pique our curiosity as viewers or readers. It is not hard to find examples of violence in movies, video games, books, art, and unfortunately, on the streets where we live. Violence is as common as any other serious malady impacting human reality such as health issues, poverty, and mental health. But, can maladies such as poverty be related to violence? Begin paragraph text. How much do we know about violence? How does it become part of the makeup of relationships, workplaces, city streets, and homes all over the world? Why is violence interwoven into so many elements of humanity? Why is it that violence is a universal problem, and it is doubtful that humanity will erase violence from its earthly narrative for some time to come? Ahluwalia, 2019. Violence itself occurs in many forms in every corner of our world, therefore, to explore violence, we must first understand that violence is as subjectively and culturally defined as it is delivered or received. Gonzalez, 2008. Subjective means some people may not be impacted by violence in the same fashion as others, but this reality should not stop interventions intended to force an end to the acts of violence. Rather, it is important to understand how violence is interpreted by victims so that we as a global community gain a greater understanding of the spectrum of violence that exists in our communities. One person may see an act of violence as patriotic or a sign of heroism, whereas someone else may see violence of any kind completely unacceptable. What constitutes an act of violence is perhaps best defined by the receiver or victim of the violent act. Organizations worldwide create their own definitions of violence that are contextually meaningful to any number of particular circumstances being witnessed in any number of geographical locations. The World Health Organization, the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, and the United Nations have provided a definition of violence as well as definitions speaking to political violence, social violence, and violence against women. And within each definition you will see that gender, liberty, psychological and physical well-being are involved in within the broad context of defining violence. It is also important to understand that all of these elements that form the definition of violence may be realized in private or public life. Begin paragraph text. Let's look at the definition of violence as defined by 4 prominent organizations. The World Health Organization. Begin paragraph text. The World Health Organization favors this broad definition of violence, as the intentional use of physical force or power threatened or actual, against oneself, another person, or against a group or community, that either results in or has a high likelihood of resulting in injury, death, psychological harm, maldevelopment, or deprivation. It takes the forms of self-directed violence, interpersonal violence, and collective violence. The Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development. Begin paragraph text. The Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development specifies political violence as the use of force towards a political end that is perpetrated to advance the position of a person or group defined by their political position in society. Governments, state militaries, rebels, terrorist organizations, and militias engage in political violence, as well as actors who may adopt both political and criminal motives. the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development. Begin paragraph text. The Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development describes social violence like this: a broader manifestation of grievances, criminal behaviors, and interpersonal violence in society. These include multiple types of crime, homicides, and interpersonal and self-directed violence. Low-income marginal groups in Colombia came up with 60 different definitions in the late 1990s, mostly connected to economic deprivation. The United Nations. Begin paragraph text. The United Nations defines violence against women as any act of gender-based violence that results in, or is likely to result in, physical, sexual, or mental harm or suffering to women, including threats of such acts, coercion or arbitrary deprivation of liberty, whether occurring in public or in private life. Begin paragraph text. It is important to understand that the term violence encompasses a broad spectrum of actions and behaviors that can be described as violent. Think of slapping someone compared to shooting someone. Both may be considered violent, but there is a noticeable difference between a bullet and a hand. However, the critical consideration that must be made is, there is an act being perpetrated by someone and that act must be critically examined in order to understand the impact and resolution. Begin paragraph text. For more detail on how violence can be broken down into typologies for critical analysis, please visit this resource. Begin link, Definition and Typology of Violence www.who.int. Begin paragraph text. As you can see, this chart allows you to complete a rather quick analysis of a particular type of violence. For example, a man has physically abused his wife. You can look at this: a family, partner, physical or sexual or psychological, or deprivation or neglect, or all four. This helps the individual providing the intervention narrow down services needed. However, not everyone wanting to know more about violence will be a care provider, but you will undoubtedly know someone you work with, someone in your immediate or extended family, or even if you decide to volunteer in your community, you will work, meet or love someone that has been impacted by violence. So understanding various typologies of violence will help you determine how to interact with the victim. Begin image with description, a chart showing the typology of interpersonal violence. It illustrates that interpersonal violence relates to family/partner violence as well as violence against the community. The family/partner category is further broken down into child, partner, and elder violence. The community category is broken down into acquaintance and stranger violence. Along the left, there are 4 different types of violence: physical, sexual, psychological, and deprivation, or neglect. This chart would be filled out to describe different kinds of interpersonal violence. End image. Image source. Begin link, Violence Prevention Alliance, Definition and Typology of Violence www.who.int. Begin paragraph text. Once you have explored begin link, Types of Violence and Abuse www.canada.ca, you will see that there are many distinguished typologies of violence. Begin bulleted list with 13 items. Item 1 of 13, Family Violence. Item 2 of 13, Child Abuse. Item 3 of 13, Financial Abuse. Item 4 of 13, Abuse of Seniors. Item 5 of 13, Partner or Intimate Partner Abuse. Item 6 of 13, Dating Violence. Item 7 of 13, Sexual Abuse. Item 8 of 13, Physical Abuse. Item 9 of 13, Emotional Abuse. Item 10 of 13, Stalking. Item 11 of 13, Bullying. Item 12 of 13, Cyberbullying. Item 13 of 13, Workplace Violence. Begin paragraph text. It is important to know that often more than one typology of abuse is being experienced by victims. For example, bullying may occur at work or online and could lead to physical or emotional abuse. Bullying could be considered emotional abuse. Intimate partner abuse could include sexual abuse, financial abuse, and physical abuse. Because several typologies may be involved, it is important to know that violence is not a simple act. Violence is in fact a very complex action precipitated by someone that has a particular need that they feel violence may meet. This course will focus on domestic and workplace violence. But, as you may already realize, both domestic and workplace violence may involve several typologies of abuse. Domestic violence is any form of abuse that occurs within the family. This may include extended family members, elders, and blended family members. The abuse does not necessarily occur in the familial home. Location is not always crucial to defining domestic violence. Begin paragraph text. For more details on domestic violence, please explore this site. Begin link, domestic violence www.ontario.ca. Begin paragraph text. Workplace violence is, as the title suggests, abuse or violence that occurs through associations related to employment. This, like domestic violence, does not have a specific geographical location. Online bullying from colleagues or harassment through phone calls can be considered workplace violence. Begin paragraph text. For more details on workplace violence, please explore this site. Begin link, workplace violence and workplace harassment www.labor.gov.on.ca. Begin paragraph text. In this introductory lesson, we have introduced ourselves to classmates, explored the syllabus, reviewed the complex nature of violence defined, and read through material that will allow for a more thorough understanding of. Begin bulleted list with 3 items. Item 1 of 3, typologies of violence. Item 2 of 3, domestic violence. Item 3 of 3, workplace violence. Begin paragraph text. References. Image source, begin link, charlesfisherunsplash.com, begin link, unsplash.com. Begin paragraph text. In the previous module, we examined the definition of violence and the idea that violence may be broken down into several typologies, for example, physical or psychological. In this module, we will examine domestic violence specifically and how domestic violence presents itself in several contextual fashions. In this lesson, we will explore a speech delivered by Franklin Delano Roosevelt, which will provide you with a view into the push for the development of human rights in the 20th century. Then we will explore the United Nations work to attend to the demands for international human rights. Then we will explore the Ontario Human Rights Code, which will provide insight into how domestic violence may be interpreted as a violation of rights based on protected grounds. The Ontario Human Rights Code will also be reviewed later in the course when we explore workplace violence. After a brief exploration of human rights and the background behind the development of recent initiatives to create structure to uphold human rights, we will begin to examine domestic violence. Learning outcomes. Begin paragraph text. This module will contribute to your understanding of the following unit learning outcomes. Begin numbered list with 4 items. Item 1 of 4, Identify concepts written into the OHRC that speak to domestic violence. Item 2 of 4, recognize the impact of domestic violence through statistical analysis. Item 3 of 4, identify and describe the features of sexism, misogyny, and misandry. Item 4 of 4, define several contemporary theories of cause for domestic violence. Begin paragraph text. When we think of human rights as they exist today, it is important to note that the idea that all humans, regardless of gender, age, culture, language, income or sexual preferences, is a new concept as far as the topic of rights for humans is concerned. Throughout history, it is common that a specific section of the population, often those with political or economic power, holds greater rights and privileges over others. Many historical documents speak to rights for humans, however, many groups were denied rights based on gender and/or cultural identities. Begin paragraph text. After World War II, political bodies worked towards ensuring our world would never fall into a state of violence experienced during the war. There were several other notable conflagrations, however World War II shed light on an undeniable truth: our world is fragile and we need to protect those that live within it. If we look at Franklin D. Roosevelt's State of the Union speech from 1941, he mentions 4 freedoms. Take some time to watch the speech now. Begin paragraph text. For a full transcript, read this. Begin link, transcript of President Franklin Roosevelt's annual message, 4 Freedoms, to Congress, 1941, www.ourdocuments.gov. Let's highlight this important quote from the speech. Begin paragraph text. In the future days, which we seek to make secure, we look forward to a world founded upon 4 essential human freedoms. Begin heading Level 2, Franklin D. Roosevelt's 4 Freedoms. Begin paragraph text. Select Next to learn more. Next. Begin paragraph text. The first is freedom of speech and expression everywhere in the world. Begin paragraph text. The second is freedom of every person to worship God in his own way everywhere in the world. Begin paragraph text. The third is freedom from want, which, translated into world terms, means economic understandings which will secure to every nation a healthy peacetime life for its inhabitants everywhere in the world. Begin paragraph text. The fourth is freedom from fear, which, translated into world terms, means a worldwide reduction of armaments to such a point and in such a thorough fashion that no nation will be in a position to commit an act of physical aggression against any neighbor anywhere in the world. Begin paragraph text. Now, we can argue that we have not hit FDR's target as of yet. It's possible that you might think that we already have. In that case, one hopes that you can see the building blocks for a more robust development of human rights following from the points made during FDR's speech. Begin paragraph text. A short while after World War II, the United Nations was created, and in 1948 the Universal Declaration of Human Rights was adopted by 56 countries that were members of the United Nations. Within this document adopted by 56 countries, we can read. Begin paragraph text. The Universal Declaration promises to all the economic, social, political, cultural, and civic rights that underpin a life free from want and fear. They are not the reward for good behavior. They are not country-specific, or particular to a certain era or social group. They are the inalienable entitlements of all people, at all times, and in all places, people of every color, from every race and ethnic group, whether or not they are disabled, citizens or migrants, no matter their sex, their class, their caste, their creed, their age or sexual orientation. Begin heading Level 2, Activity, United Nations and Human Rights. Begin paragraph text. Please visit and explore the Begin link, United Nations homepage www.ochre.org. Watch the short vignette on the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, UDHR. Begin paragraph text. For more context around this video, you can explore the Begin link, United Nations webpage for UDHR www.ochre.org. Begin paragraph text. Once you have spent time exploring the UN's website, can you identify human rights that have been explored on the website that you had not previously thought of being rights? Begin paragraph text. Write your thoughts in the space provided. Begin paragraph text. Can you see remnants of the speech that FDR delivered in 1941 on the UN website? If you made a list of all of the human rights that you can think of, what would your list look like? Begin paragraph text. Write your thoughts in the space provided.
Where, after all, do universal human rights begin?
After World War II, it was clear that the horrors of the war should never be allowed to occur again. Founded in 1945, the United Nations sought to prevent future atrocities by affirming, in its foundational charter, faith in fundamental human rights, the dignity and worth of the human person, and a commitment to promote better standards of life in larger freedom. In the years that followed, member states of the United Nations strived to develop the human rights provisions of the Charter and capture them in a single document. It took 3 years to agree on a common vision. On the 10th of December, 1948, the General Assembly of the United Nations adopted the Universal Declaration of Human Rights as a common standard of achievement for all peoples and all nations.
Still, it is the first step in a great evolutionary process. It is the first occasion on which the organised community of nations has made a declaration of human rights and fundamental freedoms, and it has the authority of the body of opinion of the United Nations as a whole. And millions of people, men and women and children all over the world, will turn for hope and guidance and inspiration to this document.
While history alone can determine the historic significance of an event, it is safe to say that the declaration before us may be destined to occupy an honorable place in the procession of positive landmarks in human history.
The declaration consists of a preamble and 30 articles, with Article 1 powerfully proclaiming that all human beings are born free and equal in dignity and rights. No discrimination, right to life, liberty and security, no slavery, no torture or cruel, inhuman or degrading treatment or punishment, equal protection of the law, no arbitrary arrest, detention or exile, fair and public hearing, no arbitrary interference with privacy, right to freedom of movement, right to seek and enjoy asylum, right to a nationality, right to marry and to found a family, right to property, freedom of thought, conscience and religion, freedom of opinion and expression, freedom of peaceful assembly and association, right to take part in government, right to work, right to rest and leisure, right to food, clothing, housing, medical care and social services, right to education, right to participate in cultural life.
These human rights are not country-specific. They are not a reward for good behavior or particular to a certain era or social group. They are the rights of people of every color, from every race and ethnic group, whether or not they have disabilities, citizens or migrants, no matter their sex, their class, their caste, their creed, their age, or sexual orientation.
The Declaration has generated action for human rights protection in many ways. It has inspired hundreds of human rights instruments that together constitute international human rights law and a number of international bodies and mechanisms for human rights protection. The principles of the Declaration have supported the decolonization struggle and have been enshrined in the constitutions of the newly established countries which have joined the United Nations. The Declaration has inspired national and regional human rights protection systems, including legislation and institutions. And it continues to guide the work of human rights defenders and advocates worldwide. Today, the Declaration is available in more than 500 languages and dialects, and it has obtained the Guinness World Record for the most translated document in the world. The 10th of December, the day on which the Declaration was adopted, is celebrated each year as Human Rights Day. The Declaration emphasizes the relevance of human rights in our daily lives.
Where, after all, do universal human rights begin? In small places close to home, so close and so small that they cannot be seen on any maps of the world. Yet they are the world of the individual person, the neighborhood he lives in, the school or college he attends, the factory, farm, or office where he works. Such are the places where every man, woman, and child seeks equal justice, equal opportunity, equal dignity without discrimination. Unless these rights have meaning there, they have little meaning anywhere. Without concerted citizen action to uphold them close to home, we shall look in vain for progress in the larger world.
The first is freedom of speech and expression everywhere in the world. The second is freedom of every person to worship God in his own way everywhere in the world. The third is freedom from want, which translated into world terms means economic understandings which will secure to every nation a healthy, peacetime life for its inhabitants everywhere in the world. The fourth is freedom from fear, which translated into world terms means a worldwide reduction of armaments to such a point and in such a thorough fashion that no nation will be in a position to commit an act of physical aggression against any neighbor anywhere in the world. This nation has placed its destiny in the hands and heads and hearts of its millions of free men and women, and its faith in freedom under the guidance of God. Freedom means the supremacy of human rights everywhere. Our support goes to those who struggle to gain those rights and keep them. Our strength is our unity of purpose to that high concept there can be no end save victory.
Begin paragraph text. Let's move on from FDR and the UN to the Ontario Human Rights Code. Within this code you will find many of the categories or grounds of human existence that are mentioned within the Declaration of Human Rights. The begin link, Ontario Human Rights Code, OHRC, www.org.on.ca is a provincial statute that came into effect on June 15, 1962. Other provinces have similar documents and I invite you search for them on the internet and to take time reading through the details within these statutes. There is good reason that geography impacts certain processes in creating legislation, not only for human rights but for other contextually appropriate solutions to problems. Begin paragraph text. Before proceeding, take some time to watch this short video from the Ontario Human Rights Commission. Begin link, Human Rights 101 3rd edition, 2020, www.org.on.ca. Begin paragraph text. The OHRC is a very large document, but for the purpose of this course we will focus on two important areas found with the OHRC, grounds and social areas. The OHRC protects individuals under these grounds. Begin bulleted list with 14 items. Item 1 of 14, age. Item 2 of 14, ancestry, color, race. Item 3 of 14, citizenship. Item 4 of 14, ethnic origin. Item 5 of 14, place of origin. Item 6 of 14, creed. Item 7 of 14, disability. Item 8 of 14, family status. Item 9 of 14, marital status, including single status. Item 10 of 14, gender identity, gender expression. Item 11 of 14, receipt of public assistance, in housing only. Item 12 of 14, record of offenses, in employment only. Item 13 of 14, sex, including pregnancy and breastfeeding. Item 14 of 14, sexual orientation. Begin paragraph text, and these social areas. Begin bulleted list with 5 items. Item 1 of 5, accommodation, housing. Item 2 of 5, contracts. Item 3 of 5, employment. Item 4 of 5, goods, services and facilities. Item 5 of 5, membership in unions, trade or professional associations. Begin paragraph text. As you can see, the OHRC is a very comprehensive document that addresses the rights of individuals on many grounds and social areas. The OHRC is an important statute to include in the exploration of domestic violence, because domestic violence may occur at home or it may happen at work and could include sexual abuse, marital issues, age-related issues and many others. So incorporating the OHRC into any plan to address issues related to domestic abuse is important. Begin heading level 2, stop and reflect. Begin paragraph text. When you read the OHRC, what is the first element of the code that stands out as crucial to the support of rights for individuals? Begin paragraph text. Write your thoughts in the space provided. Begin paragraph text. Are you able to think of any ways that this code could be improved upon? Do you think codes like this will work? Do you think they will be ignored? Begin paragraph text. Write your thoughts in the space provided. Begin paragraph text. Bonus activity. If you would like to see an example of an individual working to uphold the rights of others from the 16th century so you can see that the same issues plagued our part of the world several centuries ago, search for Bartolomé de las Casas.
Welcome to Human Rights 101. This e-course is an interactive introduction to the Ontario Human Rights Code. Human Rights 101 is for information only. It provides a basic understanding of rights and responsibilities under the Ontario Human Rights Code. If you have a human rights concern, contact the Human Rights Legal Support Centre or a community legal clinic. There are 5 parts to this e-course. Parts 1 to 4 are about the code. Part 5 takes you through Ontario's human rights system. This is how the e-course is set out. Part 1 is on the Code, Preamble, Social Areas, and Grounds. Part 2 is on the Code and types of discrimination. Part 3 is on interpreting and applying the Code, harassment, the duty to accommodate, and exceptions to the Code. Part 4 asks the question, what is discrimination under the Code? And Part 5 is on Ontario's human rights system, past and present. Why do we need to know about the Human Rights Code? We need to know about the Code because we all have rights and responsibilities to make sure that everyone is treated equally and without discrimination. Human rights touches our lives every day. We want a healthy workplace. Our friends and family come from around the world. They may be getting older or have a disability. Our children's friends may have same-sex parents or only one parent. Human rights are for everyone. The Code reinforces this in its preamble, which refers to two significant human rights documents. The first is the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. The second is the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms, which guarantees the people of Canada certain political and civil rights. As you go through this e-course, keep 4 key concepts in mind. The Code has primacy. This means that the Code takes precedence over other provincial laws, unless there is a specific exception written into the law. The Code is remedial. This means that it tries to remove discrimination, prevent it, and provide remedies to help restore people to where they would have been before the discrimination happened. It also means that the Code is not meant to punish. The Code also allows for approaches that can stop discrimination and prevent it in the future by educating the public and creating awareness. Under the Code, it doesn't matter if you didn't intend or mean to discriminate. To understand if discrimination happened, it's the impact on the person that matters. The only time intent may be considered is in cases where people face reprisal for upholding human rights under the Code. The Code is provincial only. It applies to workplaces, housing, services, and other areas that are covered by Ontario laws. The Canadian Human Rights Act covers workplaces or services that are regulated under federal law, such as banks, Canada Post, the airlines, and the federal government. How much do you already know? Take this short quiz to find out. It's true or false. As a refugee, I'm not protected under the Code. True or false. I can't live in adult-only apartments because of my young children. True or false. At the library, a man sitting near me says he doesn't like black people and that I should move away. If I tell the librarian, she can tell him to stop. True or false. I'm 64, so it's all right for the manager to keep asking me when I'm going to retire. True or false. A landlord can refuse to show Tal and his boyfriend the apartment because they are a gay couple. In the sections ahead, you'll learn the answers to these questions and more. Part 1. The Preamble, the Social Areas, and the Grounds of Discrimination. Part 1 of this e-course takes you through the core sections of the Code, which are the Preamble, the Social Areas, and the Prohibited Grounds of Discrimination. The Code opens with the Preamble. This is an introduction that sets out the philosophy of the statute. The Code's preamble states that it is public policy in Ontario that we can all live, work, and receive services with dignity, can contribute to society, and have equal access to opportunities without discrimination. The preamble also refers to the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, which reflects human rights values in Canada and around the world. After the preamble comes Part 1 of the Code. This section sets out the right to be free from discrimination in 5 specific areas of our lives, called social areas. The 5 social areas are services, goods, and facilities, housing accommodation, contracts, employment, and vocational associations. Services, goods, and facilities. Services and facilities include stores, restaurants and bars, hospitals and health services, schools, universities and colleges, public places and facilities, such as community centers, public washrooms, libraries, malls and parks, municipal and provincial government services and programs, such as social assistance and benefits, and public transit. Also, services provided by insurance companies. Housing accommodation. Accommodation may include buying, selling, renting, or being evicted from an apartment, house, condominium, or commercial office. Depending on how long a guest is staying, a hotel could be a service or an accommodation, or both. This social area includes entry to the building, using swimming pools and the laundry room. For example, a landlord can't refuse to rent to a tenant who has young children or who is receiving public assistance or disability benefits. Contracts. Everyone has a right to enter into a contract on equal terms. This includes the offer, acceptance, price, or even rejection of a contract. Employment. Employment is interpreted broadly and covers everything from hiring to firing. Employment can include applying for a job, training, promotions, dismissal, overtime, rates of pay, vacations, benefits, discipline, and performance evaluation. The Code can also apply to discrimination that takes place outside the workplace, but that has work-related consequences. For example, at an after-hours office party or on a business trip. This is called the extended workplace. Vocational association. Everyone has a right to join and to be treated equally in unions, professional associations, or other vocational associations without discrimination based on the grounds set out in the Code. Now that you know more about the social areas covered by the Code, let's go through the prohibited grounds of discrimination. Under the Code, you cannot discriminate against another person or group of people because of their race, citizenship, place of origin, ethnic origin, color, ancestry, gender identity, gender expression, disability, age, creed, sex, which includes pregnancy, family status, marital status, sexual orientation, receipt of public assistance in housing only, and record of offenses in employment only. Race-related grounds. Race and related grounds include race, ancestry, place of origin, color, ethnic origin, and citizenship. In some cases, racial discrimination is also based on creed. Gender identity and gender expression. Gender identity is each person's internal sense of being a woman, a man, both, neither, or anywhere along the gender spectrum. Gender expression is how a person publicly expresses or presents their gender. This can include behavior and outward appearances, such as dress, hair, makeup, body language, and voice. Disability. Disability includes temporary and permanent disabilities, past or present disabilities, receiving or having received Workplace Safety and Insurance Board benefits. Disabilities can be physical, learning, developmental, or it can be mental health related, or drug and alcohol addictions. Disabilities can be visible, invisible, or perceived. Age. Age under the code refers to a person who is 18 years or older. Examples of age discrimination might be someone being forced to retire at age 65, or being denied housing because a landlord is looking for older tenants. People under the age of 18 are protected from discrimination based on other code grounds. For example, a child under age 18 could bring a claim under the code relating to sex, disability, or race. Parents or guardians can file applications on their behalf. Creed. Creed includes religion. It may also include other belief systems that greatly influence a person's identity, worldview, and way of life. Sex. Sex is generally considered to relate to someone's biological sex assigned at birth, male, female, or intersex. It also includes a person's gender, that is, expectations and stereotypes about behaviors, actions, and roles linked to being a man or a woman. The ground of sex includes pregnancy and breastfeeding. Family status. Family status means being in a parent-child type relationship and can include caring for children and older family members. Marital status. Marital status includes being single, married, widowed, divorced, in a common law relationship, and same or opposite sex partnership. Sexual orientation. Sexual orientation includes people who are gay, lesbian, bisexual, or heterosexual. Receipt of public assistance. Receipt of public assistance applies only to discrimination in housing. It includes receiving social assistance benefits, disability benefits, old age security pensions, Canada Pension Plan benefits, and unemployment benefits. Record of offenses. Record of offenses applies to employment only. Code protections apply if you have been convicted of a federal offense and have received a pardon, or have been convicted of a provincial offense, such as under the Highway Traffic Act. One more thing. It's important to remember that if you have a complaint of discrimination or harassment under the code, you must identify a social area and at least one ground of discrimination, and there must be a connection between the two. An example is being denied housing because you have children. Section 2 of this e-course discusses discrimination in more detail. You finished this section. Check what you learned, or skip to the next section. Knowledge check for Part 1. Which social area? Stores, restaurants, hospitals, schools, community centers, or public transit? Is that services, goods, and facilities, housing accommodation, employment, contracts, or vocational association? That's right. Which social area? Working as a nurse, cleaner, server, bus driver, or engineer? Is that services, goods, and facilities, housing accommodation, employment, contracts, or vocational association? That's right. Which social area? Submitting an application to rent an apartment. Is that services, goods, and facilities, housing accommodation, employment, contracts, or vocational association? That's right. What grounds of the code could this person identify with? Disability, race, place of origin, ethnic origin, color, ancestry, creed, or age? Family status? Sexual orientation? Receipt of public assistance? Good work! Part 2. The Code and Types of Discrimination. Did you know that there are different types of discrimination? Part 2 of this e-course introduces you to several types of discrimination. How would you answer this question? What is discrimination? In human rights law, discrimination means treating someone differently because of personal characteristics that are based on the grounds of discrimination set out in the code. Discrimination under the code happens when a person experiences negative treatment or impact. The negative treatment or impact doesn't have to be intentional, but it must be linked to a ground or grounds such as race, sex, disability, or other grounds protected by the code. For example, discrimination could mean treating someone unfairly because of their race, disability, sex, or other code ground. Or it could mean that an organization's policy or practices have a negative effect on someone because of a code ground. Remember that under the code, discrimination must happen in one of the social areas: employment, housing, goods, services, and facilities, contracts, or membership in unions, professional, or other vocational associations. Discrimination is not always easy to identify. This next section will help you identify and name the different types of discrimination under the code. Overt versus hidden discrimination. Discrimination can be overt or it can be subtle or hidden. Here's an example of subtle or hidden discrimination. A housing provider is renting out an apartment and screens out application forms from people who are receiving public assistance. This happens without the knowledge of people affected. Constructive, adverse effect discrimination. Discrimination is not always just between people. Rules, policies, procedures, requirements, eligibility criteria or qualifications may seem fair on the surface, but actually lead to discrimination based on code grounds. This type of discrimination is called constructive or adverse effect discrimination. For example, height and weight requirements for police officers have been deemed to be a form of constructive discrimination. Systemic discrimination. Patterns of behavior, policies, or practices that are part of an organization and its culture can negatively affect people based on code grounds. This is called systemic discrimination. Systemic discrimination can exist inside an organization or within a set of organizations. An example could be the education or judicial system. Think about this scenario. The manager of an apartment requires all applicants to meet a specific rent-to-income ratio. The manager sets the applicant's minimum employment income at 3 times the rent amount, and also requires that the applicant has a solid work history. What impact could this type of policy have on people? This policy would affect people who may have a lower income, such as young people or people who are new to Canada. It could also affect people who have a disability or who are older and are in receipt of public assistance. People in these groups are often less likely to have had long-term stable employment and may have difficulty showing a solid work history. The code also protects you against reprisal. Reprisal means taking action or threatening to take action that is intended as punishment for someone asserting their rights under the code, such as making a human rights complaint. You cannot be punished or threatened with punishment for objecting to discrimination, trying to make a complaint, filing a human rights application, filing a grievance based on the code, or acting as a witness during a human rights investigation or hearing. Reprisal is the only area under the code where intent is a required element, and circumstantial evidence may be considered to establish intent. Harassment is another type of discrimination. Harassment under the code means a course of vexatious comment or conduct that is known or ought reasonably to be known to be unwelcome. Harassment usually involves the following requirements. What was said or the behavior usually happened more than once, and the person responsible for the comment or conduct knew or should have known that it was not welcome. If you or someone you know is being harassed, you can ask the person to stop. This isn't always easy to do. Sometimes it's hard to tell someone to stop, especially if you're afraid to speak out. Under the code, you do not have to object to harassment for there to be a violation of the code. Section 3 of the e-course discusses more about harassment. For now, let's move on to poisoned environments. A poisoned environment could be a form of harassment. Sometimes all it takes is one unwelcome comment or action based on code grounds, and if it's serious enough, it could poison your environment. Unwelcome comments or conduct directed at others may also create a poisoned environment for you. Sending offensive emails to everyone in the office or posting an offensive message on the bulletin board based on a code ground are examples of how a poisoned environment can be created. Discrimination also includes profiling. Instead of relying on objective, identifiable facts or reasonable suspicion, a person or organization in authority subjects someone who is protected under the code to greater scrutiny, lesser scrutiny, or other negative treatment for claimed or real reasons of safety, security, or public protection. An example would be security officials in a mall following young Black men more than other groups based on stereotypes. Discrimination can also happen in other situations. It can happen when a person experiences negative treatment or impact based on the unique stereotypes or assumptions that arise because of overlapping code ground. This is called discrimination based on intersecting ground. Discrimination can happen through association, where someone experiences negative treatment or impact because of their relationship with a person who identifies with the code ground, such as a family member or friend. Discrimination can also happen based on perceived ground, when a person experiences negative treatment or impact because they are believed to identify with the code ground, when in fact they may or may not. You finished this section. Check what you learned, or skip to the next section. Knowledge check for Part 2. Scenario: promotions. An organization hires people from diverse backgrounds and abilities, but it seems that all the managers are older white men. There may be That's right. Systemic discrimination built into the process that results in promotions for certain groups at the expense of others. Scenario: a summer stroll. Carl is a teacher who is Black. One summer evening, he was walking with his friends in a wealthy area of the city. A police officer suddenly flashes on the cruiser lights, pulls up beside Carl, and asks him directly where he is going and to see his identification. The officer doesn't speak with Carl's white friend. This could be That's right, racial profiling and/or racial harassment. Scenario: graffiti. When a service provider, employer, or housing provider permits or does nothing to remove homophobic graffiti, this may be creating a poisoned environment. Good work! Part 3. Interpreting and applying the code. Harassment and the duty to accommodate. Part 3 of this e-course provides more information on two specific human rights concepts that often arise: harassment and the duty to accommodate. We discussed harassment briefly. You already know that harassment is a form of discrimination. In fact, the Code specifically defines what harassment means. A course of vexatious comment or conduct that is known or ought reasonably to be known to be unwelcome. You'll remember that the Code looks at the effect or consequence of the words or behavior, not whether or not there was an intention to harass or discriminate. Employers, service providers, housing providers, and others are responsible for preventing and stopping harassment. Many people don't realize that there is a high cost when harassment happens, a high personal cost, and a high business cost. Harassment can make people become physically, mentally, and emotionally ill. Harassment can cause people to miss work or to quit their jobs altogether. For companies, harassment can result in low productivity. Low productivity may mean spending more on benefits and result in a bad reputation in the industry. Employers, housing providers, service providers, and other responsible organizations have a duty to prevent and stop harassment. They can start by developing anti-harassment policies and providing training. It's important to stay informed about the Code and to take action to prevent harassment and to stop it when it happens. What if you or someone you know is harassed? What would you do? First, check if there is an anti-harassment policy and follow the steps or instructions on what to do. Or if you can, tell the person to stop. Tell your supervisor, manager, union steward, or a human resources person. Make good notes about what happened. If the behavior is criminal, like sexual assault or criminal harassment, you can call the police. You can also file a human rights complaint, called an application, with the Human Rights Tribunal of Ontario. You can also contact the Human Rights Legal Support Centre for legal advice. Now let's quickly consider the duty to accommodate. Go to the OHRC's e-learning on the duty to accommodate for more information. Failing to accommodate is a form of discrimination. Accommodation means making special arrangements for some people based on their needs that are related to Code grounds, so they can have the same opportunities as everyone else. Accommodation may mean changing rules, policies, procedures, and requirements where needed. For example, flexible working hours or a ramp into a building can allow someone with a disability to be able to work. Employers, housing providers, service providers, and others have a legal duty to accommodate people based on Code grounds. Undue hardship is an important concept associated with a duty to accommodate. The only time an accommodation doesn't have to be provided is when to do so would cause undue hardship. That is, where the accommodation creates major health and safety risks or excessive costs. An example of undue hardship is an accommodation that is so expensive that it would put a company out of business. Another example is a severe health and safety danger that can't be reduced. Undue hardship is a very hard test to meet. The accommodation provider must be able to provide evidence that undue hardship will result. So, you now know that the Code expectation is to provide the duty to accommodate up to the point of undue hardship. Both the person seeking accommodation and the accommodation provider have responsibilities. Here's a workplace example. The employee must make the request to the best of their ability. Explain what is needed and why, provide necessary information on their restrictions and limitations, discuss possible accommodation solutions, cooperate with experts if required, agree to meet work standards, and work with the employer to manage the accommodation process. Employers must accept the request for accommodation in good faith unless there are genuine reasons for acting otherwise. Respect the employee's dignity, assess the employee's needs, respond as quickly as possible, maintain confidentiality, take an active role in exploring solutions, and cover the costs of the accommodation. The employer must be alert. In some cases, for example, when a person is clearly unwell and is perceived to have a mental health disability, employers must be alert to the possibility that a person may need an accommodation, even if they have not made a specific or formal request. More information on their duty to accommodate is available in the recorded webinar available on the OHRC's website. There is a direct link under the Resources tab above. Exceptions to the Code. There are some exceptions to protections for discrimination under the Code. If a person shows that they were discriminated against, the person or organization responsible for the discrimination has the chance to show that they have a defense or exception to the Code. Exceptions are very specific situations where the Code allows people to be treated differently based on Code grounds. We'll cover special programs under Section 14, special interest organizations under Section 18, and special employment under Section 24. Special programs, Section 14. Special programs help people from disadvantaged groups protected by the Code improve their situation. Special programs can be used to create jobs or provide special services or opportunities to people from specific Code-protected groups. The Code allows for programs designed to relieve hardship or economic disadvantage, helps disadvantaged people or groups to achieve or try to achieve equal opportunity, or help eliminate discrimination. Here are some examples of special programs. A housing co-op keeps a set number of spaces for women who are leaving abusive relationships. The government funds a job program for persons under 25 to combat youth unemployment because the Statistics Canada study shows that youth under age 25 face higher rates of unemployment than other groups. A government-funded community legal clinic offers its services only to people with disabilities to help them deal with some of the systemic barriers they face. Special Interest Organizations, Section 18. There is an exception to the rule that services must be offered without discrimination. This exception only applies to organizations such as charities, schools, social clubs, or fraternities that want to limit their right of membership and involvement. They are allowed to do this on the condition that they serve only or mostly a particular group of people identified by a code ground. For example, a cultural club serving only persons with physical disabilities may limit membership to those persons, and a shelter for abused women is allowed to serve only people who identify as women. Special Employment, Section 24. Organizations are generally not allowed to hire in a discriminatory way. However, there are some exceptions. The Code allows certain types of organizations to hire people who identify with the same code ground as the people the organizations serve. They include philanthropic or charitable groups, educational organizations such as religious colleges, fraternal organizations, and social organizations such as a cultural club that serves a particular ethnic group. This exception is only permitted if identification with a particular code ground is reasonable and genuine, and is linked to the duties of the job the person is being hired for. Well done! You've completed this section. Click the button if you would like to know what should go into a quality anti-harassment or discrimination policy, or skip to the next section. Self-assessment of organization's anti-harassment, anti-discrimination policy. Employers, housing providers, service providers, and other organizations covered by the Code are responsible for making sure their environments are free from discrimination and harassment. Organizations operating in Ontario have a legal duty to take steps to prevent and respond to breaches of the Code. Organizations and individuals can violate the Code whether they do it directly or indirectly, intentionally or unintentionally, and where they ignore, tolerate, or adopt behavior that is against the Code. If someone came to you with a human rights concern, would you or your organization be prepared to deal with it? Your organization should have an anti-discrimination, anti-harassment policy. Use the checklist that follows to learn what your policy should include. Your policy should have a plan for preventing, reviewing, and removing barriers, anti-harassment and anti-discrimination policies, an internal complaints procedure, an accommodation policy and procedure, and an education and training program. Your plan for removing barriers must set specific, measurable goals for removing barriers, create clear timelines for achieving these goals, must allocate adequate resources towards meeting goals, ensure accountability and responsibility for meeting goals, and include a way to regularly review and evaluate progress towards the identified needs. Your anti-harassment and anti-discrimination policy should clearly state the organization's commitment to creating and maintaining respect for human rights and fostering equality and inclusion. It should describe the objectives of the policy, such as promoting human rights in the organization, preventing harassment and discrimination, and setting out standards for appropriate workplace behavior. It should set out the activities and persons it applies to, list and explain the grounds protected under the Code. It should provide key definitions and concepts, including poisoned environment and the duty to accommodate, and set out rules and responsibilities. Any empty boxes? There should not be any. Your in-house policy and process must include each item on the list. Need some help? See the OHRC's A Policy Primer, Guide to Developing Human Rights Policies and Procedures. Part 4. What is discrimination under the Code? Would you recognize discrimination under the Code when it happens? Discrimination on its face is called prima facie discrimination. Under the Code, a human rights claim made to the Human Rights Tribunal of Ontario must show prima facie discrimination. A prima facie complaint often involves one or more grounds of discrimination listed under the Code. The problem you're complaining about must have happened in one of the 5 social areas, such as employment, housing, or services, and you must have experienced negative treatment or impact in the social area, whether it was intentional or not. Was the Code ground a factor in the impact or treatment you experienced? It's important to know that the Code ground only needs to be one reason for the negative treatment or impact. Start with this simple checklist. 1. One or more Code grounds. Yes or no. 2. Social area. Yes or no. 3. Negative treatment or impact. Yes or no. 4. At least one code ground is a reason for the negative treatment or impact. Yes or no. 5. Provincially regulated. Yes or no. If you answered yes to each question, your concern may fall under the code. You may be able to make an application directly to the Human Rights Tribunal of Ontario. If you want legal advice before making an application, the Human Rights Legal Support Centre may be able to help you. You can contact the Human Rights Tribunal of Ontario or the Human Rights Legal Support Centre. Links to their websites are found under the Resources tab. If you file a human rights application, the person or organization you have complained about will be told that you complained and will be asked to explain what happened. The organization or person has a chance to explain why it was not discrimination or why a defense or exception in the code applies. You finished this section. Check what you learned, or skip to the next section. Knowledge check for Part 4. Scenario: the food court. Camilla worked at a food court near Hamilton and left after a short period of time. Camilla said that the owner, who was also the cook, made inappropriate sexual comments about her and about customers. The cook said that if the kitchen was getting too hot, leave. No one else was bothered. They liked the informal atmosphere in the workplace. Camilla wonders, is this discrimination? Am I being harassed? That's right. Continue and consider how the 5 questions above apply to the current scenario. You've identified a social area. Employment. At least one ground of discrimination. Sex. And there's a connection between the two. It impacted Camilla when she had to quit her job in Hamilton, Ontario. Scenario: hiring and promotions. You are the human resources manager. The president of the company has come to you because she has noticed a problem and needs your help. An external report about the company found that 95% of managers and other high-level staff are men, and all of them are white. The company has been working hard to hire and keep a diverse workforce. She says all the employees are being given the same training and opportunities. The president wants you to figure out what is happening during the hiring and promotion process. You decide to A. Talk to the directors to learn more about the promotion process. B. Talk to some people who were passed over for promotions and ask why they think they were missed out. C. Check performance evaluations to see if they explain why some people were not promoted. A. The directors all agree that the process in place is fair and that they promote staff based on merit. See what else you can find out. B. You talk to 10 employees who were passed over for promotion. All of them have similar experiences. None are part of the club that golf and socialize together. While everyone gets invited to in-house golf tournaments, employees with childcare or elder care responsibilities and employees who are newcomers to Canada don't often attend. You get the sense that employees who may have a disability also don't join in. C. Performance evaluations show very little distinction between employees who get promoted and those who do not. Good work! These are all important viewpoints to consider. Continue and decide what to tell your company's president. What would you tell your company's president? A. This could involve systemic discrimination because the club has a pattern of behavior that is part of the organizational culture, which can negatively affect people based on code grounds. You will do some research and see what could remedy the problem. B. Playing golf is an important part of the corporate culture, not just internally, but also for meetings and networking with external clients. If some people choose not to participate, it's not within management's control, and it should not be a factor for promotions or other benefits. C. Everyone should be encouraged to join the golf games, even people with no previous experience playing. This will help ensure everyone gets the same networking and advancement opportunities. The best response is A. Answer B could be part of the conversation, but B points out how corporate culture may unknowingly exclude people who identify with code ground. Answer C is a reminder of what steps can be taken to ensure that corporate culture does not negatively affect people who identify with any of the code grounds. Part 5. Ontario's Human Rights System, Past and Present. Part 5 of this e-course discusses the foundations of the Ontario Human Rights Code and highlights some of the important historical moments in the evolution of Ontario's human rights system. It also gives an overview of Ontario's current human rights system. Shocked by the atrocities of World War II and the Holocaust, a human rights movement emerged in Canada. Ontario became a leader among the provinces in 1944 when it introduced the Racial Discrimination Act. Canadian John Humphrey would play a leading role in drafting the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. This movement brought together politicians, trade unionists, and everyday people who actively lobbied for stronger legislation to protect human rights. By 1950, Ontario amended an old discriminatory statute, the Conveyancing and Law of Property Act, and removed the section that prohibited any person of Jewish, Hebrew, Semitic, Negro, or colored race or blood from buying or selling real estate property. Over the next decade, under Premier Leslie Frost, Ontario would introduce new anti-discrimination legislation. The Fair Employment Practices Act of 1951 prohibited discriminatory employment practices. The Female Employees Fair Remuneration Act of 1951 protected a woman's right to equal pay. The Fair Accommodation Practices Act of 1954 prevented discrimination in services, facilities, and accommodations in public space. In 1959, Ontario established its first Anti-Discrimination Commission to raise awareness and to educate the public about these new anti-discrimination acts. In 1961, the Ontario Human Rights Commission and the Human Rights Tribunal of Ontario, then called the Ontario Board of Inquiry, were established. On June 15, 1962, the various anti-discrimination acts were brought together under the Ontario Human Rights Code. The early code focused primarily on race-related and creed grounds. Since then, new grounds of protection against discrimination have been added to reflect social changes. Today, the code prohibits discrimination in 5 social areas: services, goods and facilities, accommodation, housing, contracts, employment, and vocational associations. Today's code includes 17 grounds of discrimination: age, ancestry, color, race, citizenship, ethnic origin, place of origin, creed, disability, family status, marital status, gender identity, gender expression, receipt of public assistance in housing only, record of offenses in employment only, sex, including pregnancy and breastfeeding, and sexual orientation. In 1961, the Ontario Human Rights Commission was established to enforce the Ontario Human Rights Code. At the time, complaints were filed with the Commission, which would investigate their merits to determine which cases would be referred to the Board of Inquiry for adjudication. In 2008, the current human rights system was established. This new system included 3 separate organizations: the Human Rights Tribunal of Ontario, the Human Rights Legal Support Centre, and the Ontario Human Rights Commission. The Ontario Human Rights Commission focuses on public education and outreach, including e-learning, developing policies, monitoring laws, taking legal action in the public interest, and conducting public inquiries. The OHRC's policies are important because they help people and organizations understand rights and responsibilities under the Code. If you appear before the Human Rights Tribunal of Ontario, you can ask that these policies be considered by the adjudicator, who is the person hearing the case. The Human Rights Legal Support Centre can give advice about human rights concerns, can help you file an application, and may provide legal representation at the tribunal. For more information on the HRLSC services, visit their website. The link can be found under the Resources tab in the upper right corner of your screen. The Human Rights Tribunal of Ontario is where applications are filed directly for adjudication. Many applications are resolved through mediation, which is offered to applicants and respondents at an early stage. If the application proceeds through preliminary screening and is not resolved through mediation, an adjudicator looks at the human rights concern, considers the evidence, and makes a decision. For more information on the HRTO, visit their website. The link can be found under Resources tab in the upper right corner of your screen. You finished this section. Check what you learned, or skip to the next section. Knowledge check for Part 5. Helping a coworker. Your friend has been taking her sick child for medical appointments. Her manager wants to know why she can't keep to her regular work schedule and has asked her several times if her family life is interfering with her work. Your friend was given verbal and written warnings about taking too much time off and is worried about losing her job. You go online to find out where she can get some advice. Where would you start? If the company has more than 50 employees, you could start with the Ministry of Labor. She may have the right to take unpaid job-protected leave. The Ontario Human Rights Commission. The OHRC has policies and guidelines that would be helpful. For example, its policy on ableism and discrimination based on disability, or its policy and guidelines on discrimination because of family status. The Human Rights Legal Support Centre. The Centre can help her decide if she has a human rights claim under the Ontario Human Rights Code and file an application at the Human Rights Tribunal of Ontario. Union steward or representative. If the workplace is unionized, a union steward or representative can explain what protection she has under the collective agreement. It's just a joke. You work in a factory. The owner's wife looks after personnel issues. Alan makes rude comments about women. He laughs about people's accents and complains about what they eat for lunch. You talk to his wife about his comments about your coworkers. His wife says, "Everyone knows Alan just likes to joke around." You tell her you don't think he's funny at all, and that what he says makes you feel very uncomfortable. You decide to go online to get some information. Where would you start? The Ministry of Labor. However, the Ministry of Labor does not handle complaints of harassment or discrimination under the Code. The Ontario Human Rights Commission. The OHRC develops policies and guidelines. In this case, its policy on preventing sexual and gender-based harassment and policy and guidelines on racism and racial discrimination would be helpful. The Human Rights Legal Support Centre. The Centre can help you decide if you have a human rights claim under the Ontario Human Rights Code and file an application at the Human Rights Tribunal of Ontario. Consult an employment lawyer. Contact the Law Society of Ontario's Lawyer Referral Service if you need to find an employment lawyer. Good work. These are all good ideas, depending on the complaint and the workplace. Congratulations! You've completed Human Rights 101.
Begin paragraph text. What scenarios come to mind when you think of domestic violence? A man beating his wife and children? An adult daughter abusing her elderly mother? There are many examples that may come to mind, but here is a basic description of domestic violence taken from the Ontario government website. Begin paragraph text. Domestic violence is a pattern of behavior used by one person to gain power and control over another person with whom they have or previously had an intimate relationship. Quote from Begin link, Domestic Violence www.ontario.ca. Begin paragraph text. Domestic violence can include. Begin paragraph text, select Next to learn more. Next. Begin paragraph text. Physical violence with the use of hands, objects or weapons. Begin paragraph text. Sexual violence, including threats, intimidation, physical force or using a position of power for sexual purposes. Begin paragraph text. Emotional abuse, verbal abuse or psychological intimidation, including threatening to kill a partner, a child, a pet or livestock. Begin paragraph text. Spiritual abuse, including using to religion to threaten or intimidate, forcing someone to comply with religious beliefs against their will or preventing someone from practicing their beliefs. Begin paragraph text. Financial abuse, including stealing, controlling finances, forcing a partner to work or prohibiting a partner from working. Begin paragraph text. Harassment and stalking, including monitoring a partner's activities online, using electronic devices to watch or control them, following them or consistently invading their privacy. Begin paragraph text. Cyberviolence, including image and video sharing without consent, taking pictures or video without a person's consent, online bullying, harassment, unwanted sexting and hate speech. Begin paragraph text. Within this short list you will see several typologies of violence. Begin image with description, a diagram showing the different typologies of violence: physical, sexual, emotional, spiritual, financial, and cyber. All of these types of violence can, and frequently do, coexist. Begin paragraph text. These different types of violence are not mutually exclusive, but in fact frequently can and do coexist. In some of these definitions, the term intimate violence comes up. It is important to note that the idea of intimate does not only mean two individuals that have been in a relationship. Rather, it is the intimate nature of the relationship that may be exploited by the abuser, such as father against son, or vice versa. Begin paragraph text. It is important to remember that domestic violence may happen to anyone at any time. Begin heading level 2, further reading and viewing. Begin paragraph text. Visit this website to learn more about domestic violence, RCMP. Begin link, Intimate Partner Violence and Abuse www.rcmpgrc.gc.ca. Begin paragraph text. Before you proceed, take some time to watch these short TED Talks. Begin bulleted list with 3 items. Item 1 of 3, begin link, Está Soler, How We Turn the Tide on Domestic Violence, hint, the Polaroid helped, www.ted.com. Item 2 of 3, begin link, Laura Bates, Everyday Sexism, www.ted.com. Item 3 of 3, begin link, Ashley Judd, How Online Abuse of Women Has Spiraled So Out of Control, www.ted.com.
To imagine what a breakthrough this was for women who were victims. I want you to imagine what a breakthrough this was for women who were victims of violence in the 1980s. They would come into the emergency room, what the police would call a lover's quarrel. And I would see a woman who was beaten. I would see a broken nose and a fractured wrist and swollen eyes. And as activists, we would take our Polaroid camera, we would take her picture, we would wait 90 seconds, and we would give her the photograph. And she would then have the evidence she needed to go to court. We were making what was invisible visible. I've been doing this for 30 years. I've been part of a social movement that has been working on ending violence against women and children. And for all those years, I've had an absolutely passionate and sometimes not popular belief that this violence is not inevitable, that it is learned, and if it's learned, it can be unlearned, and it can be prevented. Why do I believe this? Because it's true. It is absolutely true. Between 1993 and 2010, domestic violence among adult women in the United States has gone down by 64%. And that is great news. 64%. Now, how did we get there? Our eyes were wide open. 30 years ago, women were beaten, they were stalked, they were raped, and no one talked about it. There was no justice. And as an activist, that was not good enough. And so step one on this journey is we organized. And we created this extraordinary underground network of amazing women who opened shelters. And if they didn't open a shelter, they opened their home so that women and children could be safe. And you know what else we did? We had bake sales, we had car washes, and we did everything we could do to fundraise. And then at one point we said, you know, it's time that we went to the federal government and asked them to pay for these extraordinary services that are saving people's lives, right? And so, step number 2, we knew we needed to change the laws. And so we went to Washington and we lobbied for the first piece of legislation. And I remember walking through the halls of the US Capitol, and I was in my 30s, and my life had purpose. And I couldn't imagine that anybody would ever challenge this important piece of legislation. I was probably 30 and naive. But I heard about a congressman who had a very, very different point of view. Do you know what he called this important piece of legislation? He called it the Take the Fun Out of Marriage Act. The Take the Fun Out of Marriage Act, ladies and gentlemen, that was in 1984 in the United States, and I wish I had Twitter. 10 years later, after lots of hard work, we finally passed the Violence Against Women Act, which is a life-changing act that has saved so many lives. Thank you. I was proud to be part of that work, and it changed the laws, and it put millions of dollars into local communities, and you know what else it did? It collected data, and I have to tell you, I'm passionate about data. In fact, I am a data nerd. I'm sure there are a lot of data nerds. I am a data nerd, and the reason for that is I want to make sure that if we spend $1, that the program works, and if it doesn't work, we should change your plan. And I also want to say one other thing. We are not going to solve this problem by building more jails or by even building more shelters. It is about economic empowerment for women. It is about healing kids who are hurt. And it is about prevention with a capital P. And so, step number 3 on this journey. We know if we're going to keep making this progress, we're going to have to turn up the volume, we're going to have to increase the visibility, and we're going to have to engage the public. And so knowing that, we went to the Advertising Council and we asked them to help us build a public education campaign. And we looked around the world to Canada and Australia and Brazil and parts of Africa. And we took this knowledge and we built the first national public education campaign called There's No Excuse for Domestic Violence. Take a look at one of our spots.
Where's dinner?
Well, I thought you'd be home a couple of hours ago, and I put everything away.
What is this? Pizza?
You had just called me. I would have known what
Dinner ready is pizza.
Honey, please don't be so loud. Please don't. Let go of me!
Get in the kitchen!
No!
Do you want to see what hurts? That's what hurts! That's what hurts!
Oh, please.
As we were in the process of releasing this campaign, O.J. Simpson was arrested for the murder of his wife and her friend. We learned that he had a long history of domestic violence. The media became fixated. The story of domestic violence went from the back page, but actually from the no page to the front page. Our ads blanketed the airwaves, and women, for the first time, started to tell their stories. Movements are about moments, and we seize this moment. And let me just put this in context. Before 1980, do you have any idea how many articles were in the New York Times on domestic violence? I'll tell you, 158. And in the 2000s, over 7,000. We were obviously making a difference. But we were still missing a critical element. So step 4, we needed to engage men. We couldn't solve this problem with 50% of the population on the sidelines. And I already told you I'm a data nerd. National polling told us that men felt indicted and not invited into this conversation. So we wondered, how can we include men? How can we get men to talk about violence against women and girls? And a male friend of mine pulled me aside and he said, you want men to talk about violence against women and girls, men don't talk. I apologize to the men in the audience, I know you do. But he said, you know what they do? They do talk to their kids. They talk to their kids as parents, as coaches, and that's what we did. We met men where they were at and we built a program. And then we had this one event that stays in my heart forever, where a basketball coach was talking to a room filled with male athletes and men from all walks of life. And he was talking about the importance of coaching boys into men and changing the culture of the locker room and giving men the tools to have healthy relationships. And all of a sudden, he looked at the back of the room and he saw his daughter. And he called out his daughter's name, Michaela, and he said, Michaela, come up here. And she's 9 years old, and she was kind of shy, and she got up there, and he said, sit down next to me. She sat right down next to him, gave her this big hug, and he said, people ask me why I do this work. I do this work because I'm her dad, and I don't want anyone ever to hurt her. And as a parent, I get it. I get it. Knowing that there are so many sexual assaults on college campuses that are so widespread and so underreported, we've done a lot for adult women. We've got to do a better job for our kids. We just do. We have to. We've come a long way since the days of the Polaroid. Technology has been our friend. The mobile phone is a global game changer for the empowerment of women. And Facebook and Twitter and Google and YouTube and all the social media helps us organize and tell our story in a powerful way. And so those of you in this audience who've helped build those applications and those platforms as an organizer, I say thank you very much. Really, I clap for you. I'm the daughter of a man who joined one club in his life, the Optimist Club. Can't make that one up. And it is his spirit and his optimism that is in my DNA. I have been doing this work for over 30 years, and I am convinced now more than ever in the capacity of human beings to change. I believe we can bend the arc of human history toward compassion and equality. And I also fundamentally believe and passionately believe that this violence does not have to be part of the human condition. And I ask you, stand with us as we create futures without violence for women and girls and men and boys everywhere. Thank you very much.
We're living in a moment where the future feels impossibly complex. AI, climate, democracy, and so much more. And the questions we face don't have easy answers. But when I think about all that we've accomplished in 2025, I see something extraordinary taking shape. TED identifies the world's most game-changing ideas from visionary thinkers and uses our powerful media platform to supercharge those ideas. Our global community of learners, builders, dreamers, and doers brings these ideas into their homes, communities, classrooms, and boardrooms, creating ripples of impact felt in almost every corner of the world. In 2025 alone, TED brought together more than 500,000 people at our conferences and events and launched thousands of inspiring and actionable ideas from our stages and studios. Those ideas were watched billions of times and shared across every continent. But the numbers alone don't tell the whole story. TED has the unique ability to reach individuals across the ideological spectrum and go deep into the issues that matter most. This year, we convened the leading voices on AI, climate, health, science, art, and culture to share radically different perspectives on where our world is headed. And we developed an innovative technology that enables us to reach across barriers by dubbing TED Talks for non-English speaking audiences. By creating open access to knowledge for all, TED is democratizing global problem solving at a time when the scale of challenges we face requires all of us. But impact isn't just about scale, it's about depth. It's about advancing real solutions that change lives. From equipping students with real-world skills to elevating Indigenous wisdom, amplifying clean energy solutions, and supporting emerging leaders, TED is at the forefront of what's possible. And this is just a sneak peek of what you'll see in the 2025 Impact Report. Across generations and geographies, TED is paving the way towards a better future for all of us. The challenges we face are massive, but so is our community and our reach, and what we're capable of when we all come together. So thank you. Thank you for your incredible support and your belief in the power of ideas.
sense of why are you making a fuss about this? About 18 months ago, I had a really bad week. I was on my way home from work one night, and it was one of those hot evenings where the traffic was at a standstill. And as I walked down the road and the cars crawled next to me, some guys started shouting out of their car windows about my legs, about the things that they'd like to do to me. And I ignored them, and I carried on home, and I got on with it, like you do. And then a few nights later, I was on the way home on the bus quite late at night, and I was on the phone to my mum. And I thought at first that the guy next to me just accidentally brushed my leg with his hand. And I carried on talking to my mum. And then I realized that
Ashley Judd, stupid fucking slut. You can't sue someone for calling them a cunt. If you can't handle the internet, fuck off, whore. I wish Ashley Judd would die a horrible death. She is the absolute worst. Ashley Judd, you're the reason women shouldn't vote. Twisted is such a bad movie, I don't even want to rape it. Whatever you do, don't tell Ashley Judd she'll die alone with a dried out vagina. Online misogyny is a global gender rights tragedy, and it is imperative that it ends. Girls' and women's voices and our allies' voices are constrained in ways that are personally, economically, professionally, and politically damaged. And when we curb abuse, we will expand freedom. I am a Kentucky basketball fan, so on a fine March day last year, I was doing one of the things I do best. I was cheering for my Wildcats. The daffodils were blooming, but the referees were not blowing the whistle when I was telling them to. Funny, they're very friendly to me before the opening tip, but they really ignore me during the game. 3 of my players were bleeding, so I did the next best thing. I tweeted. It is routine for me to be treated in the ways I've already described to you. It happens to me every single day on social media platforms such as Twitter and Facebook. Since I joined Twitter in 2011, misogyny and misogynists have amply demonstrated they will dog my every step. My spirituality, my faith, being a hillbilly, I can say that, you can't. All of it is fair game. And I have responded to this with various strategies. I've tried engaging people. This one guy was sending me hyper-sexual, nasty stuff, and there was a girl in his avatar, and I wrote him back and said, "Is that your daughter? I feel a lot of fear that you may think about and talk to women this way." And he surprised me by saying, "You know what? You're right. I apologize. Sometimes people want to be held accountable." This one guy was musing to I don't know who that maybe I was the definition of a cunt. I was married to a Scot for 14 years, so I said, cunt means many different things in different countries. But I'm pretty sure you epitomize the global standard of a dick. I've tried to rise above it. I've tried to get in the trenches, but mostly I would scroll through these social media platforms with one eye partially closed, trying not to see it, but you can't make a cucumber out of a pickle. What is seen goes in. It's traumatic. And I was always secretly hoping in some part of me that what was being said to me and about me wasn't true. Because even I, an avowed, self-declared feminist who worships at the altar of Gloria, internalized the patriarchy. This is really critical. Patriarchy is not boys and men. It is a system in which we all participate, including me. On that particular day, for some reason, that particular tweet after the basketball game triggered something called a cyber mob, this vitriolic, global outpouring of the most heinous hate speech, death threats, rape threats. And don't you know, when I was sitting at home alone in my nightgown, I got a phone call, and it was my beloved former husband, and he said on a voicemail, "Loved one, what is happening to you is not okay." And there was something about him taking a stand for me that night that allowed me to take a stand for myself, and I started to write. I started to write about sharing the fact that I'm a survivor of all forms of sexual abuse, including 3 rapes, and the hate speech I get in response to that. These are just some of the comments posted to news outlets. Being told I'm a snitch is really fun. Thank you, Jesus. May your grace and mercy shine. So I wrote this feminist op-ed. It is entitled, "Forget Your Team. It is your online gender violence toward girls and women that can kiss my righteous ass." And I did that alone, and I published it alone because my chief advisor said, "Please don't. The reign of retaliatory garbage that is inevitable, I fear for you." But I trust girls, and I trust women, and I trust our allies. It was published, it went viral, it proves that every single day, online misogyny is a phenomenon endured by us all over the world, and when it is intersectional, it is worse. Sexual orientation, gender identity, race, ethnicity, religion, you name it, it amplifies the violence endured by girls and women, and for our younger girls, it is worse. It's clearly traumatizing. Our mental health, our emotional well-being are so gravely affected because the threat of violence is experienced neurobiologically as violence. The cortisol shoots up, the limbic system gets fired, we lose productivity at work. And let's talk about work. Our ability to work is constrained. Online searches of women applying for jobs reveal nude pictures of them, false allegations they have STDs, their addresses indicating that they are available for sex, with real examples of people showing up at this house for said sex. Our ability to go to school is impaired. 96% of all postings of sexual images in our young people, girls, our boys, are 2 to 3 times more likely non-consensually to share images. And I want to say a word about revenge porn. Part of what came out of this tweet was my getting connected with allies and other activists who are fighting for a safe and free internet. We started something called the Speech Project, Curbing Abuse, Expanding Freedom. And that website provides a critical forum because there is no global legal thing to help us figure this out. But we do provide on that website a standardized list of definitions because it's hard to attack a behavior in the right way if we're not all sharing a definition of what that behavior is. And I learned that revenge porn is often dangerously misapplied. It is the non-consensual sharing of an image used tactically to shame and humiliate a girl or woman that attempts to pornography us. Our natural sexuality is, I don't know about yours, pretty gorgeous and wonderful, and my expressing it does not pornography make. So I have all these resources that I'm keenly aware so many people in the world do not. I was able to start the Speech Project with colleagues. I can often get a social media company's attention. I have a wonderful visit to Facebook HQ coming up. Hasn't helped the idiotic reporting standards yet. I actually pay someone to scrub my social media feeds, attempting to spare my brain the daily iterations of the trauma of hate speech. And guess what? I get hate speech for that. Oh, you live in an echo chamber. Well, guess what? Having someone post a photograph of me with my mouth open saying they can't wait to come on my face, I have a right to set that boundary. And this distinction between virtual and real is specious because guess what? That actually happened to me once when I was a child, and so that tweet brought up that trauma, and I had to do work on that. But you know what we do? We take all of this hate speech and we disaggregate it, and we code it, and we give that data so that we understand the intersectionality of it. You know, when I get porn, when it's about political affiliation, when it's about age, when it's about all of it. We're going to win this fight. There are a lot of solutions. Thank goodness. I'm going to offer just a few, and of course, I challenge you to create and contribute your own. Number one, we have to start with digital media literacy, and clearly it must have a gendered lens. Kids, schools, caregivers, parents, it's essential. Two, shall we talk about our friends in tech? Said with dignity and respect, the sexism in your workplaces must end. EDGE, the global standard for gender equality, is the minimum standard, and guess what? Silicon Valley, if L'Oreal in India, in the Philippines, in Brazil, and in Russia can do it, you can too. Enough excuses. Only when women have critical mass in every department at your companies, including building platforms from the ground up, will the conversations about priorities and solutions change. And more love for my friends in tech. Profiteering off misogyny in video games must end. I'm so tired of hearing you talk to me at cocktail parties, like you did a couple weeks ago in Aspen, about how deplorable #Gamergate was when you're still making billions of dollars off games that maim and dump women for sport. Basta, as the Italians would say. Enough. Our friends in law enforcement have much to do because we've seen that online violence is an extension of in-person violence. In our country, more girls and women have been murdered by their intimate partners than died on 9/11 and have died since in Afghanistan and Iraq combined. And it's not cool to say that, but it is true. We care so much geopolitically about what men are doing over there to women over there. In 2015, 72,828 women used intimate partner violence services in this country. That is not counting the girls and women and boys who needed them. Law enforcement must be empowered with up-to-date internet technology, the devices, and an understanding of these platforms, how they work. The police wanted to be helpful when Amanda Hess called about the death threat she was getting on Twitter, but they couldn't really when they said, "What's Twitter?" Our legislators must write and pass astute legislation that reflects today's technology and our notions of free and hate speech. In New York recently, the law could not be applied to a perpetrator because the crimes must have been committed, even if it was anonymous. They must have been committed by telephone, in mail, by telegraph. The language must be technologically neutral. So apparently, I've got a pretty bold voice. So let's talk about our friends, white men. You have a role to play and a choice to make. You can do something, or you can do nothing. We're cool in this room, but when this goes out, everyone will say, "Oh my God, she's a reverse racist." That quote was said by a white man, Robert Morris, chairperson, PricewaterhouseCoopers. He asked me to include it in my talk. We need to grow support lines and help groups so victims can help each other when their lives and finances have been derailed. We must, as individuals, disrupt gender violence as it is happening 92% of young people 29 and under witness it. 72% of us have witnessed it. We must have the courage and urgency to practice stopping it as it is unfolding. And lastly, believe her. Believe her. This is fundamentally a problem of human interaction. And thus, I believe that human interaction is at the core of our healing. Trauma not transformed will be trauma transferred. Edith Wharton said the end is latent in the beginning, so we are going to end this talk replacing hate speech with love speech. Because I get lonely in this, but I know that we are allies. I recently learned about how gratitude and affirmations offset negative interactions. It takes 5 of those to offset 1 negative interaction. And gratitude in particular, free, available globally, anytime, anywhere, to anyone in any dialect. It fires the pregenual anterior cingulate, a watershed part of the brain that floods it with great good stuff. So I'm going to say awesome stuff about myself. I would like for you to reflect it back to me. It might sound something like this. I am a powerful and strong woman, and you would say, yes, you are. Yes, you are. My mama loves me. Yes, she does. I did a great job with my talk. Yes, you did. I have a right to be here. Yes, you do. I'm really cute. Yes, you are. God does good work. Yes, he does. And I love you. Thank you so much for letting me be of service.
We're living in a moment where the future feels impossibly complex. AI, climate, democracy, and so much more. And the questions we face don't have easy answers. But when I think about all that we've accomplished in 2025, I see something extraordinary taking shape.
Antithetical to consider a loved one perpetrating violence on another. And yet, domestic violence is a worldwide issue with no real end in sight. Here are some statistics on domestic violence in Canada. Begin heading Level 2, Family Violence. Begin table with 4 columns and 6 rows. Row 1 of 6. Column 1 of 4. Column heading. Type of violation. Column 2 of 4. Column heading. Female victim. Column 3 of 4. Column heading. Male victim. Column 4 of 4. Column heading. Total victims. Row 2 of 6. Column 1 of 4 with column heading type of violation. Homicide, other violations causing death and attempted murder. Column 2 of 4 with column heading female victim. 154. Column 3 of 4 with column heading male victim. 128. Column 4 of 4 with column heading total victims. 282. Row 3 of 6. Column 1 of 4 with column heading type of violation. Sexual offenses. Column 2 of 4 with column heading female victim. 888. Column 3 of 4 with column heading male victim. 1613. Column 4 of 4 with column heading total victims. 10501. Row 4 of 6. Column 1 of 4 with column heading type of violation. Physical assault. Column 2 of 4 with column heading female victim. 46205. Column 3 of 4 with column heading male victim. 26899. Column 4 of 4 with column heading total victims. 73104. Row 5 of 6. Column 1 of 4 with column heading type of violation. Other offenses involving violence or the threat of violence. Column 2 of 4 with column heading female victim. 12911. Column 3 of 4 with column heading male victim. 5518. Column 4 of 4 with column heading total victims. 18429. Row 6 of 6. Column 1 of 4 with column heading type of violation. Total family violence. Column 2 of 4 with column heading female victim. 68,158. Column 3 of 4 with column heading male victim. 34,158. Column 4 of 4 with column heading total victims. 102,316. Begin heading level 2, non-family violence. Begin table with 4 columns and 6 rows. Row 1 of 6. Column 1 of 4. Column heading. Type of violation. Column 2 of 4. Column heading. Female victim. Column 3 of 4. Column heading. Male victim. Column 4 of 4. Column heading. Total victims. Row 2 of 6. Column 1 of 4 with column heading type of violation. Homicide, other violations causing death and attempted murder. Column 2 of 4 with column heading female victim. 196. Column 3 of 4 with column heading male victim. 838. Column 4 of 4 with column heading total victims. 1034. Row 3 of 6. Column 1 of 4 with column heading type of violation. Sexual offenses. Column 2 of 4 with column heading female victim. 25,489. Column 3 of 4 with column heading male victim. 3087. Column 4 of 4 with column heading total victims. 28,576. Row 4 of 6. Column 1 of 4 with column heading type of violation. Physical assault. Column 2 of 4 with column heading female victim. 76,337. Column 3 of 4 with column heading male victim. 94,219. Column 4 of 4 with column heading total victims. 170,556. Row 5 of 6. Column 1 of 4 with column heading type of violation. Other offenses involving violence or the threat of violence. Column 2 of 4 with column heading female victim. 42,359. Column 3 of 4 with column heading male victim. 54,656. Column 4 of 4 with column heading total victims. 97,015. Row 6 of 6. Column 1 of 4 with column heading type of violation. Total non-family violence. Column 2 of 4 with column heading female victim. 144,381. Column 3 of 4 with column heading male victim. 152,800. Column 4 of 4 with column heading total victims. 297,181. Begin paragraph text. As you can see within these statistics, there were 102,316 victims of reported family violence and 297,181 victims of reported non-family violence. These numbers are shocking and reflect an appalling reality of how violent our society can be for some members. That said, 102,316 victims of reported family violence is approximately 25% of reported victims of violence in Canada. That is a significant number. IMG begin paragraph text. 102,316 reported victims of family violence. It is important to know that it is estimated that only 2% to 15% of victims of domestic abuse report the problem. So, if 102,316 represents only 2% to 15%, that gives us a pretty wide range to work with. Begin bulleted list with 2 items. Item 1 of 2, 2% of 5,115,800 is 102,316. Item 2 of 2, 15% of 682,106 is 102,316. Begin paragraph text. Due to the fact that many domestic violence incidents go unreported, we can only guess that between 682,106 and 5,115,800 actually occur. Begin paragraph text. There are many charts and graphs available on the Begin link. Statistics Canada www.statcan.gc.ca website for you to explore. You should take time to read through the statistics to gain a better understanding of gender of victims, age of victims, and geographical data related to these crimes. Begin paragraph text. So why does domestic violence occur? How did domestic violence enter into our communities and never leave? There are several theories that may be explored to explain how this pervasive and nefarious illness has stayed with us for so long. Begin paragraph text. Suzanne Lowe's 2008 dissertation, Begin link, an exploration of the effects of long-term intimate partner violence, listening to older women violence, listening to older women scholars compass.fcu.edu, PDF, provides a thorough investigation of this very topic. It's very long, so just take the time to read Chapter 2, pages 7 to 27. Also explore this article, Begin link, domestic violence calls in Canada almost doubled during COVID-19 pandemic www.huffpost.com. Begin paragraph text. These short videos will also help prepare you for further assessments in this course by giving you a variety of frameworks and modes of thinking about domestic violence. Theory. Begin paragraph text. Begin link, https://www.youtube.com/watch?v=g in Q7KJ6KLU. Intergenerational transmission. Begin paragraph text. Begin link, https://www.youtube.com/watch?v=56 Feminist theory. Begin paragraph text. Begin link, https://www.youtube.com/watch?v=the past 5 Nsu. Differential association and social learning theory. Begin paragraph text. Begin link, https://www.youtube.com/watch?v=p clap 0 rtm0u. Social bond theory. Begin paragraph text. Begin link, https://www.youtube.com/watch?v=u5gyb_s. Attachment theory. Begin paragraph text. Begin link, https://www.youtube.com/watch?v=wj ow gsoxk. Exchange theory. Begin paragraph text. Begin link, https://www.youtube.com/watch?v=p30st5f869e. Cultural acceptance of violence towards women. Begin paragraph text. Begin link, https://www.youtube.com/watch?v=qc_guide. The role of alcohol in domestic violence. Begin paragraph text. Begin link, https://www.youtube.com/watch?v=j&t1d at 1mqq. Begin paragraph text. After watching the videos and reading through Chapter 2 in the PhD thesis from Suzanne Lowe, please take time to ask yourself. Begin bulleted list with 3 items. Item 1 of 3, has your idea of family violence changed since watching these videos and reading through the course content? Item 2 of 3, can you envision how intimate partner violence may blend with child abuse or other typologies of violence within families? Item 3 of 3, have your thoughts on why violence within families changed? Begin paragraph text. Domestic violence is a dynamic topic impacting our globe, and the research completed to understand how and why it occurs is extensive. For various reasons, violence becomes an element found within a family or relationship, and if not dealt with quickly, the violence will likely become worse rather than fade away. Many families have stories of violence embedded in their history, and it takes action to ensure the cycle of violence ends rather than it becoming an intergenerational issue. Perhaps this is where education and awareness along with support systems become essential. Violence may become a normal and expected element within some families, and until someone steps in to say no more, then the violence will continue. It is important to note that support for both the victim and perpetrator is important to work towards ending the violence. Support for only victims does not help the perpetrator to stop or to understand their role in solving the problem. Perpetrators of violence are often victims, perhaps in childhood or during their teen years. They experience physical or emotional abuse and thoroughly integrate what they have learned about abuse into their interpersonal relationships. Violence is often not limited to the home. Many violent people are violent outside of the home, within the community, or at their place of work. The idea that violence is an effective tool for perpetrators to use when they need to take control or need to be heard is learned early in life and becomes a tool or tactic to use throughout their life. Ultimately, if the violent behavior is allowed to continue, the results for the family unit and the victims is disastrous. Emotional scars from years of abuse may lead victims to use alcohol or drugs. Children witness the abuse and may eventually incorporate abuse into their lifestyle and future relationships. Violence will in no way impact relationships in a positive fashion. Love and violence are opposites. When someone learns that love and violence are correlated, this is what we call a cognitive distortion. When this happens, their ability to uphold a mutually beneficial, healthy, and loving relationship is in serious jeopardy. Begin paragraph text. In this module, we have explored basic human rights as well as domestic violence. We have also read through material that will allow for a more thorough understanding of. Begin bulleted list with 3 items. Item 1 of 3, the Ontario Human Rights Code. Item 2 of 3, domestic violence. Item 3 of 3, theories of cause. Begin paragraph text. References. Image source, begin link, MarcusSpitzKunsplash.com, begin link, unsplash.com. Begin paragraph text. Do, see begin link, instructional plan OntarioLearn.Desire2Learn.com for exact due dates. Submit to, the Violence Reflection Submission Folder. Submission folders can be accessed by selecting Course Tools and then Assignments on the course navigation bar. Begin heading Level 2, Description. Begin paragraph text. Write a 1,000-word reflection outlining the importance of viewing violence as a broad spectrum of actions and attitudes. Your reflection should contain your thoughts on what violence may have meant to you before you started this course. Your reflection should also explore how you have encountered violence in your own life, whether firsthand or through sharing experiences with other victims or as a witness. Begin heading Level 3, Rationale. Begin paragraph text. This assignment will evaluate the following course learning outcomes. Begin bulleted list with 1 item. Item 1 of 1, CLO 2, define theories of cause that relate to domestic and workplace violence to develop a thorough understanding of sociological, psychological, and environmental contributors to domestic and workplace violence. Begin heading Level 2, Directions. Begin numbered list with 4 items. Item 1 of 4, read the description for this assignment. Item 2 of 4, access the submission folder to read the rubric. Item 3 of 4, in a word processor, compose a 1,000-word reflection meeting the requirements for this assignment. Item 4 of 4, submit the final document to the appropriate submission folder. Begin heading Level 2, how your assignment will be graded. Begin paragraph text. A rubric has been created and can be found attached to the submission folder. Submission folders can be accessed by selecting Course Tools and then Assignments on the course navigation bar. Unless otherwise stated, your assignment will be graded 7 business days after it is due.